I work for a small delivery service where shifts often stretch late into the night. Nothing unusual. Quiet streets, empty roads, the occasional customer. But one delivery still haunts me. And the more I think about it, the more I realize I should have turned the car around and driven away. It happened at the end of November. My shift was almost over when, at 11:47 p.m., the final order came in. 13 Lesnaya Street. I frowned immediately. That street was on the outskirts. Old houses, half of them abandoned. But an order is an order. The drive there was silent, and the GPS kept jumping between points, as if it couldn't lock onto the location. The whole neighborhood felt unnaturally quiet, like the place had been deserted for years. When I finally found house number 13, I slowed down. It looked uninhabited. A faint light came from a single window, but there was no movement inside. I grabbed the bag and walked to the porch. The steps bent under my weight, as if the space beneath them was hollow. I knocked. No answer. The sound echoed down the empty street. I was about to leave when the lock clicked. The door slowly opened by itself. No creak, no noise. As if someone was carefully holding it from the inside. Delivery, I said, into the dim house. Still no response. I took a step in and froze. The air was cold and damp. There was barely any light, just a weak desk lamp deeper in the hallway. For a second I thought I heard breathing. Soft. Close. But when I turned around, no one was behind me. A letter was lying on the floor near the entrance. It definitely wasn't there when I walked in. My name was written on it. Full name, even my middle name. A chill ran down my spine. I never told anyone that, and it's not in my delivery profile. I picked it up, and at that moment, a quiet tapping sounded from somewhere deeper in the house. Slow and rhythmic, like someone tapping their finger against the wall. 1. Pause. 2. Pause. 3. "Hello," I called out. "I'm leaving the order and going." The tapping stopped. I turned toward the exit, but the door was closed. That same quiet door, the one that had opened by itself. Now it wouldn't budge. Not when I pushed, not when I kicked. Like someone was holding it shut from the outside, or the inside. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Light, careful steps. Someone walking barefoot. I backed away, gripping the bag so hard the plastic crinkled loudly. The steps stopped right around the corner. All I could see was a shadow. Tall, stretched, wrong in its proportions. Then a voice spoke. Quiet, raspy, but unmistakably human. "You're late." I didn't wait. I dropped the bag and bolted toward the window. The glass was old. I shattered it with my elbow and jumped out, cutting my arm but not feeling the pain. As I ran to my car, I kept hearing quick, light steps behind me, like someone was moving on all fours. I jumped inside, started the engine on the first try, and sped away. Only when I reached the main road did I risk looking into the rearview mirror. Something stood in the window of house number 13. A silhouette. Tall, thin, perfectly still. Looking at it hurt, like my brain couldn't process its shape correctly. I had taken the envelope with me. It took me a long time to open it. Inside was one sentence, written in my own handwriting. "You will come back." And the strangest part, the delivery order really had been placed, but by morning it had vanished from the system. Officially, 13 Lesnaya Street is listed as an abandoned property with no electricity since 2008. But I definitely saw the light in that window. And sometimes when I finish a late shift and drive past the outskirts, I think I see that same silhouette in a distant window, waiting, ready to open the door again. I live alone in a small house on the outskirts of the city. The neighborhood is quiet, almost too quiet. After 10 in the evening, you can hear your own breathing outside. That's why the sound of the intercom always comforted me. That short electronic beep letting me know someone had come. But about a month ago, the intercom started acting strange. The first time it rang in the middle of the night, 2:37 a.m. I woke up as if jolted by electricity. Someone kept pressing the button non-stop, like they wanted my attention at any cost. I hit answer, but there was only silence. And in that silence, the faintest breathing. I chalked it up to teenagers messing around in the building. The next morning, I switched the intercom to silent mode. 3 days later, it happened again, but this time the ringing was deliberate. Not one long tone, but a sequence of short ones. Like someone was pressing the button rhythmically, carefully, almost as if trying to communicate. There was no breathing this time. Instead, a barely audible whisper. I couldn't understand the words. It sounded like a language that shouldn't exist. Listening closely, I caught only one clear phrase, repeated every few seconds. Open. I didn't sleep that night. I contacted the building management and asked them to check the system. A technician came, fiddled with a screwdriver, and told me everything was perfectly fine. More than that, he said there were no registered calls in the system logs for the past 3 days. That was the first thing that really unsettled me. But the real nightmares began the following week. I was working on my laptop in the kitchen when I heard a faint sound, like static. I didn't realize at first that it was coming from the intercom. Even in silent mode, sometimes the speaker caught electrical noise. I leaned in and froze. There was a voice, clear, calm, low. You're home, I know. Open. I jumped back. I pressed the view button, but the camera showed nothing. Just a black screen and a soft hiss, like an old TV with no signal. I checked the door. Everything was locked. Then I sat in the silence, listening to the intercom crackle, as if someone was whispering through the wires. From that moment on, the calls became regular. Always at different times, sometimes short, sometimes long, but every time, the same word, open. Sometimes followed by my name, even though I'd never said it near the intercom. I stopped answering, stopped going near the door, started sleeping with the lights on. At some point, I began to wonder if I was losing my mind, if all this was just my imagination, worn thin from fatigue. But 2 nights ago, I realized the truth was much worse. The intercom rang at 3:12 a.m. I had no intention of checking it, but I noticed movement on the screen out of the corner of my eye. The camera was showing something. I stepped closer. There was a figure, a person, but not standing at the door. They were far too close to the camera, impossibly close. Their face was so near the lens that part of it disappeared in the static. Only the lips were visible, pale, cracked, trembling, and they were moving. On the grainy screen I read, "Open." I'm almost there. I jumped back so fast I knocked over a chair. The intercom went silent instantly. The camera shut off. But a few seconds later, I heard a new sound. A slow, almost lazy footstep outside my door. Then a second. Then a third. I stood frozen. The steps stopped right at my door. And then? Nothing. Just the pounding of my own heartbeat. I stayed like that for an hour, maybe more, before I finally dared to look through the peephole. No one was there. Today is the 3rd day since that night. The intercom is silent. The camera won't turn on. The silence feels heavy, like it's pressing down on the walls. But just now, while I was typing this, I heard something. Not a ring. A whisper. Soft, barely audible, coming from the intercom speaker. It said only one thing. I'm inside.